Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later, as now it's time for a brand new unboxing video. And if you like the look of today's toy, then you will of course find a link to TIFF sources listing for it in the video description, which might be useful as we're talking about a character that everyone is going to want for their collection. It's the big dog himself, old Robo-Dad, Earthrise Optimus Prime. Let's see if he's got the touch. Okay, and here is Earthrise Optimus Prime in his box, and very excited about this one. Already own the Dead Prime, that alternate universe version, but still, this is Optimus Prime, so how can you not be excited? Box looks great. Very consistent with the rest of the Earthrise packaging as well, just a little bit bigger. On the back, you've got some promo shots of the toy. Now, of course, I already kind of know what to expect with this one, but that still doesn't mean that I can't be excited about it. Besides, it's Optimus Prime, so I mean, he tends to get the best, or certainly some of the best toys in every line, right? So this is no real exception from what I've seen so far, so let's check him out. And here's the contents of the box. You've got the toy, the trailer, and his gun. And the trailer, of course, has a couple of other bits in it as well, but there you go. And let's not beat around the bush with this one, shall we? It looks phenomenal. Like, I think this toy really does capture the spirit and the essence of the character really, really nicely. It's a great sculpt, very clean on the whole, bar a few bits of kibble, which we'll look at. But, you know, I'm not really looking to nitpick too much, because frankly, it's a fun toy. I already know what I'm in for, as I say. Love it. I mean, case in point, it's just, you know, the classic color scheme on a really attractive mold. Great articulation, good sculpt, put together really nicely. It's banging. What can I say? What's not to like? That head sculpt alone is just, I love it. What can I say? I think it's a really nice, decent representation of the character. I think it's proportionally looks great. A little bit stylized, but and it's kind of got its own look to it, but still it's got this classic vibe all at the same time. Really like the sort of baby blue eyes just in there. They're not the most vivid though. I will say that I think it's just the sculpt or the fact that they're kind of like sunk quite far into the head in general, that they don't really kind of catch the light as well as I might have imagined. But still, and it is nice to see this without all the kind of damage, battle damage or what have you from the Dead version as well. I think it's spot on. Of course, the old chest doors are absolutely on point. The old windows here, really nice silver trim around there as well. The light blue, that really does catch the light nicely. That looks superb. Grille looks excellent. All the paint is on point. Very, very good. Shame that there's no paint on the little, sections up here on the little lights. But, to be fair, even MP10 didn't have that, so hey-ho. Shiny silver on the Autobot logo on his shoulder. Slight blemish on mine. Annoying, but hey-ho. Really like the legs on this mold. I just think that they work superbly well. They're kind of nicely, packed in, don't have too much kibble going on or whatever else. Was surprised actually by the choice of grey on the inside just here. That's a little bit of a weird one. Don't know why they didn't just go with blue for the whole thing, but it is what it is. Obviously you can't put the wheels away anywhere, but actually for my part, I quite like the wheels on the outside of the legs on Optimus Prime, so really doesn't bother me. Really like the blue as well, actually. Worth mentioning that it's got a slightly shiny quality to it in hand, particularly on the hands themselves, actually, but you can see it to a certain extent on the legs also, which is interesting. It's not at all what I expected. I might have imagined a sort of much deeper blue, but actually it looks really quite nice. In fact, the colour choices overall are a bit of a surprise. The red as well, a lot more muted than I might have imagined. It's the old saturation has just been taken down a notch, I think. We'll check him out versus a couple of other Optimus Prime toys, in a little bit, but certainly on my first impression is that, yeah, it's not quite as packed in as I might have imagined. And of course it is bare plastic for the most part, but I really don't mind that, let's be fair. Now from a rear view, this is probably the only bit that I'm not really so keen on, is these wheels on the back, on his bum. It's funny because I mentioned it in the Dead Prime review, and between that and social media, a few people have pointed out to me that, of course, yes, you can unclip these and put them to one side. Fine. And I am aware of that, and I had figured that out already, but I don't know, to my eye, I find that a weird one because people typically hate parts forming. But then when you do point out something like this and say, that could have maybe been better, they're like, but parts forming can be a solution. So I don't know. If it works for you, that's great. I'm really happy. For me, I'm going to leave them on. Do you know what I mean? I don't really want to be unclipping part of it every time I want to transform it. But I guess maybe it works. Now, of course, articulation is where this figure really shines, as although it looks superb, handles really nicely as well. And I think that's a real credit to a lot of Generations toys of late. Just the articulation has really gone kind of off the chain in more recent years. This figure's a great example of that. He can pose, contort, pretty much as you would like him to. Actually, it's those wheels again, just on the side of his, on the back of his bum, that slightly impede the waist swivel. That's, you know, maybe a little bit annoying. But other than that, he's really got it all going on. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to run through every little nook and cranny of the articulation because I've already done that in my Dead Prime review, which you can find on the channel. I'll put a link in the description. But needless to say, he can pose like a charm. And speaking of the Dead Prime, maybe it's a bit on the nose to say, but this guy's just got so much more life in him. Perhaps that's to be expected, the very nature of it. I do keep saying Dead Prime as well. Maybe I should stick with Alternate Universe Optimus Prime because, you know, he's not dead, he's just napping. Anyway, this guy looks great. With a new colour scheme, it just brings a real, you know, a lot to the fore. And of course, I'm sure this is the version that, you know, a lot of people will already own. But for me, I was super excited to get it, and I'm just not disappointed. What can I say? Of course, we've got the old trailer to play with as well, which splits open like so, and folds out into a little mini repair bay. And then you can position it like so, with Prime stood in the middle of it. And this is actually a really neat homage to the original Diaclone toy, which this was, you know, one of those features. And obviously subsequently the G1 toy. And yeah, it's pretty neat. What can I say? Of course, I have the same critiques here as I did with Alternate Universe Optimus Prime. One thing I didn't really mention there, but is kind of weird, is that because there's no flaps or anything on the underside of these sort of two trailer halves, they do just kind of bend down like that a little bit. I mean, they don't kind of sit or rest on anything, so you know, they have a tendency to kind of sag a little bit. Not the end of the world, but it is what it is. And I do think that the inside here is nicely molded. Possibly could have benefited with a little bit of a wash or some paint or something, but realistically, I understand that they didn't do that budget-wise, whatever else. Not everybody's going to, you know, go looking for that inside the trailer. And to be fair, the molding is quite nice. Now you can, of course, also take this little robo dude, this little droid, the part of the combat deck, and slide that off like so, which in turn can be pegged onto the hole on Optimus's back. Then out of the door of the trailer, that comes unpegged like so. And then on Optimus's arms, you've got these little weapon ports and things just here. Very common on a lot of these toys. And that just tabs in there like a shield. And here he is, all weaponed up, and I really like it. What can I say? I think it's nice and creative. I really like it when they just have fun with this kind of stuff and add a little bit of something new to it, even though it's kind of a classic or Slavish design overall. And I think it looks great. And of course, you've got his classic Ion Blaster just here as well, which looks really, really good actually in this mold. I like it. It's kind of a slightly more stylized take. It's quite a beefy old thing, but it looks really, really good. Slightly surprised to see that it's in black actually, because obviously having the alternate universe version first, that's in silver. So if anything, I just expected this one to be silver as well. I guess now what's funny is I have actually seen this toy in hand before and have fiddled with it before, this specific version, but obviously forgotten somehow that it was black. So there you go. Really like how he can store his gun on his back as well. I just think that makes him look like such a badass. So what else can I say about this robot mode? Except, quite simply, it's got the touch. And in terms of comparisons, here he is, of course, with G1 Optimus Prime and the latest masterpiece. This is MP44 Convoy. And yeah, all very different, of course, but still ultimately singing from the same hymn sheet. And really interesting comparison. I always think it's funny to see how Earthrise toys and the kind of current generations line are often similar in size to the, you know, the G1 toys, if anything. And of course, with Masterpiece, I'm seeing a lot of people at the moment saying, why do we even need Masterpiece anymore? We've got such nice Earthrise figures and things like that. And for my money, they're very, very different. Do you know what I mean? Obviously the parts count, the finish, the paint, all of that on this guy is drastically different and a lot more involved. Whether you like that or not, that's up to you, but they are exceptionally different figures. So, you know, certainly for my money, I like them both, but they don't do the same thing. Do you know what I mean? So I don't kind of get this argument personally of like, why do you need one and not the other? They cater to different markets, different tastes, everything. But both good toys, ultimately. Here he is with the alternate universe version, and yeah, really interesting to see these two kind of complement each other. And again, it's a weird to say that obviously some of the color choices on the dead version and how they kind of compare, you know, like the silver gun and things like that. Does his gun die as well? Does it drain of color? Does it go from black to gray or black to silver? I don't know. What's the logic here? But needless to say, I think they're both fun in their own way. If you were kind of on the fence, should I buy one, not the other? Why not both, eh? Why not both? And lo and behold, here he is with a selection of other Autobots, all of which have got the reviews on the channel, so do check those out. And yeah, what can I say? He looks marvellous. It's becoming quite a nice little troop of chaps, isn't it? Let's be fair. Well, of course, now it's time for transformation, so let's get him converted up and into vehicle mode. Right, and here he is in his truck mode, and again, transformation, really not too difficult. In fact, I really enjoy it. What can I say? It's one of those that I just have found myself with the alternate universe version, just, I don't know, wanting to kind of pick it up, fiddle with it, like if we're watching a film or something like that, you know, and your kind of hands get bored. It's just one of those to kind of keep your mind ticking over, I suppose. It's one of those. It's like a real little fiddle format. And I love it for that. And yeah, this version obviously no different, but the result does look a little bit varied, obviously because of the colour scheme, but no less good. And it's a slightly stylised, but still kind of classic interpretation of Optimus's alt mode, ultimately. Now, I will say that I do think this is the weaker of the two modes. Not that that's really a bad indictment, but you know, it does have its flaws. It's not perfect by any means, and there are a couple of little kind of grumbles that I have. Nothing too major. Just stuff like, you know, here on the side, this little cutout section of the cab mode is a lot more obvious actually here than on the alternate universe version. It's something that kind of skipped me by before, but I think that's on account of the, you know, the kind of merits of the black and grey colour scheme, kind of hiding that a little bit better. Whereas here it's all too obvious. Again, you know, it does have 3 sets of different wheels, which I still find a bit odd. Someone did reply to the previous video and said that you know, that's quite accurate to these sorts of nature of trucks, and indeed that's true. You know, it's absolutely right. And you know, on previous Optimus Prime toys, he's always had sort of 2 different wheels. You know, but never 3. So 3 is the bit that throws me. It's not so much that they're different. I don't mind them being different. It's just the fact that there's 3 separate ones. So it just looks a tiny bit odd. I think it's just because these front wheels, maybe the way they're pinned on. But hey ho, not the end of the world. And yeah, there is kind of a lot of detailing on the cab as well. So though it is an earthen style, for me personally, I maybe would have gone for slightly less detail still. But hey, it still looks really nice. What am I saying? Oh, and I do wish that actually the trailer could, you know, bend a little bit more as well. That's literally all that you're going to get, because it obviously mashes up just there against the back of the cab mode. So that is literally it. Could do with a bit more, but hey ho. On the plus side though, it's got its handsome points as well, right? Like all of this on the front is glorious. Really love those windows again. Love all the silver paint. Love the headlights that are obviously not seen in robot mode. It just all looks beautiful. And really like this little bit on the side here as well, this little translucent blue plastic here for the window, because honestly, I hadn't clocked that on the alternate universe version at all. It doesn't really kind of get shown off. And here, I don't know, it doesn't look brilliant, but it's something, right? Like it's a nod at least. There needing to be a window there. Now, as far as the trailer goes, it's actually quite swirly, this grey plastic here as well, which I'm really surprised to see and well, a little bit disappointed by. It's not the end of the world, but swirly plastic, never good. And then of course the trailer can open at the rear just here, and the cars can not fit into it. So that's kind of, I don't know, a little bit of a damp squib, I think. I was kind of anticipating this moment of just kind of slotting the car in and being like, haha, but no, it cannot be done, sadly. What I do like though is that the trailer still has its feet to stand on separately, and actually the cab does look very tidy in its own right, even this kind of back section. I mentioned again before, but this I think they've done very, very well, has to be said. And there is also a bit of additional weapon storage as well on the back of the cab, just there, because you can plug his folded up gun in on the rear, and actually I think that looks pretty cool. I think that works quite well. And of course here he is with the G1 original, and I think if anything this comparison kind of proves my point from the last review that this Earthrise trailer is quite drastically undersized. Actually, it does feel a little bit small in proportion to the cab, as you can kind of see here. I mean, you know what, it still works, it still looks good, but there is something pretty majestic about that G1 figure, I gotta be said. Maybe it's nostalgia talking, I'm sure it is, but or at least a healthy degree of it, but it's still, it's the nuts. What can I say? It's the nuts. But the Earthrise toy is still really, really nice as well. I just think that very, very few Optimus Prime truck modes have been done quite as nice as this one, actually, the one that started it all. But there you go, you can see them together anyway. So what else can I say? It's two great modes, it's a fun transformation, it's a well-built toy, nicely designed. Go get it. If you've not got it already, you should have, right? It's a toot. Quite clearly, a toot. So that's Earthrise Optimus Prime. Now I'll put a link to TF Source's listing for today's toy in the video description, and I'll be able to get the full photo review up on their blog soon. Otherwise, that's it from me, so don't forget to drop me a like if you enjoyed today's video, and have a great rest of your day. TTFN.